Our new sponsor, Better, is a fast-growing daily fantasy sports app. When you sign up using promo code PLAYBOOK in all caps, you receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match up to $77.
Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me this week, I have Franky. Franky, how are you?
I'm doing well, Brandon. How about yourself?
I'm doing just great. I have to thank you for coming on the podcast. Franky does a lot of work for Stream Beat, Miami Heat Beat, all that good stuff. One of the best basketball minds out there that I can, get to talk to. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm a big fan of yours and excited to get to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't got to do this yet, so this is exciting. I think what we'll start off with is the OKC Minnesota series, but before we get to that, we can break down just like how this Game 7 went down. So, what was like your overall thoughts of this OKC and Denver series? To begin,
I think overall, man, it's just like being a Heat fan and having to face Jokic in a series and seeing like how unstoppable he is. Like even with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra, three phenomenal defensive minds, like they still had difficulties containing him. And OKC did their best and containing him, but they found different answers to the puzzle of Nikola Jokic, that he's just like the puzzle master. Like you give him a problem and he's gonna solve it 9 times out of 10. And he did a fare really well, but man, like OKC's defense is just all time like suffocating.
yeah, it's just on a different level. Like, yeah, when you compare it to some of those Heat teams, the one thing that is similar with what the two like to do is like Spo likes to switch it up, try to throw different looks, double team sometimes, delay the double at sometimes when it's on the floor, maybe before the catch, all that type of stuff. You see OKC do some of those things, but what stuck out to me with OKC was when they start to mix it up and when they start to double, their rotations flying around was just incredible. Like Caruso's going out there flying around, you have Wallace flying around, Dort flying around. And one thing that I don't think Spo really tried that Dagnall did try was having a smaller guard on Jokic in this game in particular. Yeah, Caruso doing a lot of the work there. I know they messed with Jalen Williams at times at the 5, but I think today they wanted to try something with Caruso. I thought that was pretty impressive from that standpoint.
Yeah, you could make a great point. Like we've talked about it in the Heat Beat chat, that like, man, if they Heat team had a year early, that same roster with PJ Tucker, just a bigger body that can stronger, front him like they did with Caruso, and be able to set. They had more capable bodies with Oladipo as well. And that team was good defensively, but like the 22 team was just suffocating in a different way. And I see a lot of that in OKC. Just they have a lot of guys who are multi-positional defenders and strong, and like they don't have weaknesses like that. Like you have Dort, Caruso, J-Dub, Chet, Hartenstein. They have so many guys that you can get there. Case and Wallace was phenomenal this game. Big fan of his. And they just when they're able to run and push and get steals, and like it's over. You can't play with them.
It's tough to be. And like, Case and Wallace in particular, like his defensive stance when he's like low to the ground, it's scary. It's like Kawhi, like when Kawhi first entered the league, like it's just scary. Like you don't really want to face that at all.
You don't want to dribble by him. He yammed it on Jokic in transition. But they just have defensive playmakers, and it's tough. Like I still worry about their offensive scoring in the half court. But I mean, they're this good. They're legitimate title contending good, as it is with that weakness.
Yeah, that's probably their major flaw. And we saw it, show its face a little bit in this series. When Shai wasn't able to get it going, there's a game there where Jalen Williams didn't get it going at all in Game 6. They really needed him there, and he didn't really get it going. So you can see on that end of the court, there's still some questions that need to be answered. So now translating that into this Minnesota series, do you think Minnesota has the proper matchups to continue to make life difficult for OKC?
I think this is going to be a clash of defensive battles, and I think the thing that Minnesota has going for them is that Julius Randles is playing some of the best basketball he's ever played. It's never been about if he's capable. It's about if he's going to make the right decisions with Julius Randle. Dude is absolute all NBA talent. Was a top 10 pick. Went to Kentucky. Like has all the accolades and looks the part. but he's just always been like such a tough decision maker. And especially in the playoffs, like we've seen it as Heat fans, like watching him with the Knicks, like we're like, all right, go ahead, shoot it, Randall. We don't care. Make a decision. Yeah,
you make the play.
Exactly. Go beat us. Go beat us, Julius Randle. But he's playing great basketball. Him and Ant are like clicking on all cylinders, and they can win a rock fight, as Spo likes to call it. They love to they grinded those wins out against the Warriors. Obviously, OKC is a different animal defensively. But I think Finch is a great coach. I think this is like two of the most underrated coaches in basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in how like for those who are fans of 90s basketball and that style of like grinded out scoring, like if you wanted to see a 79 to 80 ball game, you might get that this year.
You're gonna get that. We saw one in the Denver series. I think we're seeing a few more in this series, for sure. And on that Julius Randle note, but you said a couple of things there. First, shout out both those coaches. I think I praised Chris Finch in our last episode, but Dagnall as well. I was pretty hard on him after, like, I think it was game 2 when he did the foul up when they're up 3 and they fouled and that catastrophe happened. That showed like their youth. That was like the definition of OKC's youth right in that moment. But I think he rebounded from that well. I think throughout the series he managed everything pretty well, mixing in different schemes. You had Jokic off his game for like three or four of those games. He didn't play his best basketball, which is hard to get him to do. So I got to credit Mark for that, even for the adjustments he made in this particular game 7. But when we talk about Julius Randle, I think the one thing that I've liked with Minnesota is the pecking order has been established in a way that it wasn't established in New York. So with him, it's clearly Ant's team. Ant gets the first touch, and I think the trouble for the whole season was Ant figuring out how to maneuver against different defensives. What does he do against a blitz? What does he do against a double? What does he do against a zone? All that type of stuff. Like, I think this is a big growth year for Ant from that perspective and a playmaking perspective. And in that game 5 when they closed out their last series, he had 12 assists. A bunch of turnovers, but he still had 12 assists, which is something new for Ant. And I think him being that playmaker allows Julius Randle to be the player that he wants to be without it being a conflict of interest with anybody else on the roster. I think with New York, you saw that being conflicting with Jalen Brunson, with RJ Barrett. They didn't really mesh in that way. Everyone kind of wanted to be the guy on that team. Here, Ant's the guy, and when he gets doubled, Julius knows he is the next guy, and then he's the one that's going to carry that torch. And he's done a good job throughout the playoffs so far.
Yeah, 100%. And they're both making strides as playmakers. Like you said, Ant has had his shortcomings on that end. We've seen it over the course of his career, where that's his one biggest weakness offensively. Yep. In my opinion. And I've seen it like in the Olympics, where when they try to make him be that guy, like he gets the Dwayne Wade comparisons a lot, and I don't see, I get, Dwayne's my favorite, but I don't see the Dwayne in there because he's not the playmaker that Dwayne was. He does it in different ways. He does it 3-point volume, made strides there. He's reading the game a lot better, making way better decisions and stuff like that. And I think he really was comfortable against the Warriors. They really didn't have that guy to match up with him. Yeah. OKC's going to throw a lot of different looks at him. They're going to make it really difficult. They're going to swarm. They're going to make Jaden McDaniels. He's going to have to play big. He had some big games against the Warriors and in the first round. He needs to keep that going. I think OKC's depth is going to play a big factor in this series.
Yeah, they have a lot of bodies to throw at those wing guys, which is going to cause a lot of trouble, I think, for that Minnesota offense. So talking about those two main players, Ant and Shai, who do you think is going to have an easier time getting off on their offense? Do you think it's going to be more of an Ant series, or do you think it's going to be Shai? Because I feel like for both of those guys, what the other can do on defense is going to probably trip up what they want to do on offense.
I think that's tough because I think Shai – McDaniels is probably going to get the first look at him. Nikhil as well.
Yeah, his cousin.
His cousin, exactly. Dante's going to give him some looks. Conley, and of course Ant will get some tries at him. But I think this fits Shai a little bit more. I think they'll both have good series. I think Ant really has to continue the strides as a playmaker. making good decisions and getting his team involved. Like it's not going to be Golden State, really tough defense, and that they had to lean defensively without Steph. But OKC's a different animal on that end, and they have a lot more bodies on the perimeter that I think they could really make his life really difficult. I think where Minnesota has potential pressure points is Julius Randle. Continuing to be this playmaker. I'm looking at his numbers from this last round. He averaged 25 points, 7 assists, 7.5 assists, wow. 6.6 rebounds. Like if you can get that Julius again, like this is gonna go 7 at least.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. I see things that Minnesota can do to Shai that might make things a little difficult. Is I saw in this series, like him getting into the paint was a lot tougher for him than it was in previous series and throughout the season, just in general. And even when he got there, he wasn't finishing in the volume that he was. I know he finished off the series like with statistically good, decent numbers, but it was really tough for him. Right. And I think with Gobert being your anchor down there, and you have your Jaden McDaniels, you have your Ants, you have all that type of stuff to force him into that help. I'm curious to see if Shai is able to break out in this series and get more of what he wants to. If he can find that mid-range game a little bit more, if he can find his 3-ball a little bit more, his 3-ball isn't hitting too much in this series. So if he can find some of those things, that might, get the defensive pressure off of him a little bit. But I think Minnesota can do just enough to keep him maybe at bay, and then that becomes more of a Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren series. Yeah. We haven't touched much about the bigs, but in this matchup, I think these bigs are going to be pretty crucial when you look at Chet, Hartenstein, and Rudy Gobert. Rudy was able to dominate that Lakers matchup, and he was able to dominate that Golden State matchup based off the fact they don't really have any bigs. This is the first real series he has to go against some bigs who have been through some fights now. How do you feel about that sort of matchup going into this series?
I think what will be the interesting pressure point. Denver got a lot of success going zone. And Hartenstein struggled with the flip shot for the first time in that I've ever seen.
Like ever.
Like dude is automatic from that spot, and he just couldn't hit it. But and Chet struggled as well. So like this is going to be like a good, who can solve this problem of their struggles. Like Rudy dominated against the smalls, those 6'7" bigs. Now he's got to deal with some size, and he's got to catch the ball and make plays inside. Randle got to continue it. He's got there's a lot more size to deal with, and versatility. I remember Julius getting frustrated when Heat would switch smaller guys on him, and I've seen him in other series just like not be able to bully them because he can't really dribble by them. They'll attack his handle there. So I think Minnesota going zone, seeing how much they can get away with, might and the OKC's bigs, if they could convert Chet, that his shot needs to come. Like he needs to wake up, man. That he was really, really disappointing offensively, and it's just to see if he can bounce back this series.
Yeah, for sure. The Chet question is a big one because I think if they're going to win if they're going to win the championship, it's going to be with Chet being your second or third best player, most likely your second best player. And by the end of this series, Denver was fully comfortable with letting him shoot threes. They were not worried in the slightest of him shooting an open three. And that is not the profile you want from Chet. Chet needs to be that stretch four guy. Sure. He needs to be the guy that the defense respects in that manner. And he just did not become that in this series. And that is a problem. If that is the case and Julius Randle wins that matchup decisively, I think that's going to be something really difficult for OKC to overcome.
Yeah, like they can go like OKC, their depth allows them to play multiple small guys and we'll pressure you defensively, and we'll try to create turnovers and run and get points that way. But I think this series they need Chet. They need Chet flat out to step up. I think Hartenstein will be a little bit more comfortable and not having to guard Jokic, and maybe Chet as well. Yeah. Maybe that takes some of the pressure off of him. But Randle, the way he's playing, he needs to answer that call. And I'm curious on your end, like, what do you like? Do you think they're gonna Randle's gonna have to make as much as he did in the last series? Is that gonna be a key proponent of this series?
I think so, because I think what's going to happen is they're gonna bring a lot of pressure to Ant, in the same way that Golden State tried to do. But I think the difference here is that you can still bring pressure with Dort or Caruso, and you can still have Casey Wallace or someone like that, Jalen Williams, still be on Julius Randle. And I think when you make Julius Randle the playmaker, like what did make things difficult for him when he's in New York is like you have someone like Oladipo, you have someone like PJ Tucker at times, just digging in there, and just having their hands in there. And I think OKC does a really good job of doing that as well, and just staying strong in their natural defensive stance. So I think it's going to be tough for Julius Randle in this series. I think this is going to be a tougher one for him. I think OKC can do a lot of things to make life difficult for him, but he's going to need to be the playmaker for Ant, because it's not going to be easy for Ant this series. There's going to be a lot of attention. Same way in this Denver series, where like when Shai would kind of break down his man just a little bit, and you see the rest, everyone's eyes just focused on Shai, whatever he's going to do. They're okay with letting other guys try to beat them, and I think it's going to be something similar when we look at Minnesota. X factor wise, too, I think Dante's gonna have to have a big one. His three ball has been kind of inconsistent. If he can get going with the three ball, I think this can become a series. Isaiah Joe didn't really get to go going in this series either for OKC. He kind of faded out by the end there. They went more defensive lineups, and I think they might need his shooting if things start to get slow from this defensive battle that we're expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nikhil, I think Nikhil has to play better. Shot the ball well, but he was limited in his minutes. I think Dante, like you said, is going to be really crucial. He can swing you a series easily. I think Conley is going to be really important as well. Just his veteran presence. Limiting
those turnovers. Like, sorry, but I think like,
no, you're right.
I think Mike Conley can be that guy that kind of just settles things down when things get a little bit crazy. Because you see in these couple of games where they blow teams out, it's just like, yeah, those turnovers just come in fashion. Conley can be a guy that can be like, okay, guys, we need to slow this down. Let's get a good one here.
It's about turning those, like, we can't let OKC get it on an 8-0 run like this. Let's limit them. They got 2 baskets. That's it. All right, let's turn around. Let's get a bucket. Let's run a play. Let's get in our set. Let's get in a good position. And they have to run plays. They can't be running ISO ball because it's too many bodies. Like you said, that their OKC's help at the nail and on the perimeter is too strong. And they're too like antsy to defend.
They want it.
Like, these guys want to defend. They want to force it. They love defending. These aren't guys that they're turning it on for the playoffs. These guys are bread and butter is defense. We got this is how we survive.
They love it. They love the defensive stuff. So that's a scary team to face. Is it like, when you think about even like those big 3 Heat teams, they would turn up their defense mostly in the second half, fourth quarter when they had to.
Yeah.
They liked playing defense. They didn't love it. They didn't love it like this OKC team does. They just love that end of the court.
They OKC love, like, they get off on it. It's the best way to put it, honestly. They're like, we this is our bread. This is our identity. And we understand that, we embrace that, and it starts with Caruso. Honestly, Caruso's one of the guys, Dort as well, but Caruso just like doesn't let you up, man. It's 48 minutes of fuck, bro. How can I dribble around this guy? Sorry, I don't know if we could curse on this.
Nah, you let it fly.
But it's just like it's so many guys. Like most teams don't have the two-way depth that OKC brings to the table. I think shooting, I think Dante has to have a big series shooting the 3 ball, because if OKC can just like sit in the paint, they if you don't make them pay for being in a zone or sagging off the shooters, like, you're gonna make their job so much easier.
Yeah. I think you touched that right there. That's perfect. Yeah, that is for sure. Like, you got to get them in rotation in some type of way. Denver was able to do that. That's why they were able to win some of those games. Of course, they got Jokic. They got best player in the world.
Yeah.
So that makes things a little bit easier on that end. But yeah, you got to keep them moving on rotations. You got to be able to get into that paint. You got to be able to break them down at some point, which, Ant should be able to try and do. But once he gets in that paint, you need guys like Dante to hit. You need guys like Nikhil to hit. You need guys like Jaden to even hit. All those guys need to be offensive factors, and they can't shy away from the moment at this stage.
You need Rudy to catch the ball, and
you need Rudy to catch the ball and look at the rim.
Yeah,
you need him to do. You need Rudy to be Rudy. So all those things need to happen for them to win this series. Final predictions for this series. How do you see this one going?
I think this is gonna be like a really fun and interesting series, because this is the two North American stars. Like you have Shai, obvious MVP candidate, for one of the best players in the world. And Ants wants to be next. Had a big summer with Team USA, winning gold. Has back-to-back Western Conference Finals, for the first time in Minnesota history. Like he's already he's already like a top 3 Timberwolf of all time. I think this series is going to come down to the depth of OKC, and just like they have so many guys that deserve to play and that can play for multiple teams. And I think that's going to overwhelm Minnesota. And I have OKC in 6. What about you?
OKC in 6. See, I got burned because first of all, I didn't even think Denver was going to be this far. I had them losing in the first round to the Clippers. So
oh wow, okay.
my predictions are all over the place right now. But I did give them respect in the OKC this series. I think I had OKC winning that one in 6 games, which they could have, but they Jalen Williams didn't show up. I think when I look at this series, it is hard for me to pick this one. Harder than I anticipated. I feel like if it was Denver in this situation, I might have went Minnesota, just off of the strength of them playing them last year, feeling comfortable with it, and I like what they can do defensively against Denver. Against OKC, I'm still uncertain if they're able to slow down Shai to the degree that they need to. So I think I'm with you there with OKC in 6. I think OKC does win this series. I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to see some like great games in this series, some close ones. But I think OKC might just pull this one off. I think too, an underrated thing is the fight that they've had to go through to get here. I think the Denver series was really good for the growing up of OKC. They're one of the youngest teams to ever make the conference finals. And to have a series against a team that won a championship, that was hungry and trying to get back there again, and to pull it off in the Game 7 in the fashion that they did, I think bodes well for what they can do for the rest of the playoffs, and it kind of restored my faith in what they can do. So I think I'm going to go OKC as well in 6. Anything else before we head east?
No, I love that last point you made about like the test, like being surviving passes. We saw Cleveland talk about how the Miami series didn't prepare them well for the next series.
Well, not a good test at all.
Yeah, not a good test. I'm somebody who is a big proponent of facing a team in earlier rounds that will get you ready for the rest of the playoffs. And I think that this OKC Denver series was one of the best series we've ever seen, and I potentially gets OKC ready for a title run.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Moving on east. So Indiana versus New York. Indiana pulls off how many games? They won in like 5 games, right?
Yep, 5 games.
They won in 5. New York also won in 5. Or no, New York won in 6. 7.
6.
I'm all over the place. Indiana in 5. Over Cleveland, who was the first seed in the East. They won emphatically. It was pretty much no contest. You had a couple of games there that were close. Cavaliers did have their injuries. We could talk about that. But how do you feel about? Let's start with Indiana. Indiana going into this series.
Man, I feel like like everyone else continues to underestimate them, and I wasn't surprised that they beat Cleveland, because I didn't think Cleveland, I thought Cleveland was a really good team in the regular season. They had their injuries, like you said. Darius Garland never 100%, was that toe injury he suffered in the Miami series, never recovered. Yeah. Was a shell of himself. And then Mobley missing time as well, missed a game there, and he had a decent series number wise, but I felt like he wasn't, he obviously wasn't himself. And Donovan, 34 points a game, but doing it by himself, and it's tough. It's tough like that. A lot of guys disappointed for Cleveland, but to Indiana's credit, they made it. They did that on their end. They took care of business. I love Halliburton and Carlisle as a combination. They're really good at like picking pressure points and weaknesses of teams and exploiting them.
Yeah, and even Carlisle, when it came to that game, that closeout game, the timeouts that he was calling were so perfect. Like it was every time, anytime that Cleveland went on a little bit of a run,
Yeah.
he stopped it instantly. It was
Yeah.
zapped. He caught out a play, and they got a basket, and everything was back on course. Like I think Carlisle has done a tremendous job this entire playoffs, and I expect him to do so against Thibodeau and the Knicks. Also coming off of that Cleveland series was the offense that Indiana can provide. I think, yeah, when you talk about a team not prepping them, Miami did not prep them for a good offensive, a good offensive team
At all.
I think some of those things where you see Tyrese come off of pick and roll and he's going against, they switch and have Allen on him, and the way that Tyrese is able to break down Allen and then create plays for either himself or his teammates is something that we did not see Tyler Hero do. Completely different situation there. So I think little things like that on offense, I'm curious to see how that translates into the New York series, which is again a team that I don't. New York's defense is interesting to me in the sense that, like, I think it was perfectly built for Boston. For Boston, their bigs aren't really going to hurt you like that. They're guys who want to stay more so on the outside. They're not like the strongest rim rollers anymore. And KP was that at one point, not the same anymore, especially with his illness that was going on. And Horford's definitely not that type of guy anymore. He's going to stay out on the perimeter. So I didn't think that they're going to really force the action down low. And if you're going to do too many pick and rolls with that, so I thought New York's defense was perfectly suited for Boston. I don't know if it's perfectly suited for Indiana in the sense if you get into these pick and roll games and you have Tyrese with Brunson on him doing a pick and roll with someone like Cat, or he's gonna get Brunson on an earlier switch to get that Cat Brunson pick and roll. And if they start doing that type of stuff, I could see this getting really scary for New York very quickly just on the defensive end. I don't know. How do you feel about New York's defense, I guess, in this series holding up against an Indiana offense?
I think New York's strength is the versatility that they have as well. You have Hart, you have Bridges, you have OG Anunoby. Those three are really high level defenders, versatile, and they aren't like afraid of any matchup. Like those guys can guard, they'll front, they'll do whatever they need to do, they'll scrap to get by. I think against Indiana, I'm very curious because it's such a clashing of styles. Like Indiana is one of the faster paced teams. They're scoring, they're pushing in transition, they're sharing the ball. And New York is a grinded out team. I think they were the fourth slowest pace in the league.
Wow.
Literally right above the Heat. And Indiana relies on their depth a lot more than New York does. So I'm curious on that. I think Indiana will look for pressure points to break you. And so like you mentioned Towns, and I think he needs to hold up really well this end because they're going to exploit him. TJ McConnell, they're going to use Halliburton. They're going to Nembhard, who's been like one of the bigger playoff risers.
Man, what a guy.
And I think Siakam is also a guy that he's a guy who can really take advantage of mismatches. And that's where I'm really interested, like in this depth. Like New York has to stay healthy. They have to stay out of foul trouble. Those three guys especially. I think my biggest question about it is if New York can get Indiana to play their game. We saw this go 7 last year. And I think whoever can play their style of game more will win this series.
Yeah, who can impose? That's a great point. Like I didn't even think of it from that perspective. It's like, yeah, if New York can get Indiana into their game, I don't think Indiana does not like playing that slow game.
Right.
They're better at it this year than they were last year. Like I think their defense is a little bit more built for it when you have guys like Nembhard and Nesmith who are playing a bit more, even Siakam and stuff like that. Turner as always being an anchor. But I think last year their defense wasn't where it needed to be. I think this year it's in a much better place to kind of deal with that. But if they're not getting these easy fast breaks, are they still able to break down the defense in the way that they want to? Because they have good offensive players, but they don't have like those secondary playmakers that you necessarily would need for a half court offense in that traditional sense. Like Siakam, great ISO guy, but he's not really doing too much in play. You can live similar to like a Julius Randle. You can try and make him be like a playmaker, and you can kind of live with that, and make that like your defensive principle there. So that would be an interesting battle to see who can win the stylistic battle there, which is fascinating. This is the great thing about the players when you get things like this, when you get like a slow team versus a fast team, and you see who can pull it off. I guess going with that theme, who do you think has the best player in this series? I think it's kind of tight now when you have, I guess, presumably Halliburton being the best player in Indiana, and you got Brunson being the best player in New York. You got a guard battle, but who do you feel has the edge in this series? We looked at Ant and Shea in the last one, but who do you feel has the edge in this one?
Oh man, this is like making me choose between two of my children. I'm sorry, I'm a Heat fan, but I hate this Knicks team even more because there's so many guys that I like. Like I love Brunson, I love Hart, OG. I wanted the Heat to take OG over Bam.
OG and Hart were two guys that I've begged the Heat to trade for like 3 years.
I love OG so much, man. This is so hurtful. But I love Brunson. I wanted the Heat when we did a podcast episode, me and Brian Goins, on when Brunson was a free agent, that the Heat could trade Kyle Lowry for Brunson and move the needle a little bit back so they could open their window more. And I love Halliburton, man. Halliburton is just they're like, this is another difference in styles. Like Brunson's an on-ball, high usage guy. Tyrese can be a high usage, but he can also play off the ball. He wasn't the highest usage player on this last series. He was third in usage amongst their starters, and just does like can dominate and dissect, move the ball with touch passes and stuff. I think like this. They're so close because like you could make a really good argument for either one. I think Brunson is gonna likely have better stats, but I think Halliburton can move, make moves and knows where to be, can play on or off the ball a lot more with his more of a threat as a shooter. So I think it's more of a like what your preference is. Personally, I think I like a guy like Halliburton that can play a little bit off ball, a little bit more. I think barely Brunson's better defensively because I love a guy who takes charges.
Halliburton just has like a little bit more size to him. The sneaky, like he's like 6'5". He has a little bit more length to him, so it makes the mismatch. That's another thing in that Cleveland series that I noticed, like how Cleveland tried to attack. Sorry, Tyler fans, but how Cleveland like to attack Tyler. They weren't able to do that against Tyrese. They tried, but Tyrese is able to stay just a little bit more in front of his man, just that little bit extra time to give his Neesmith, whoever, a little bit more help, a little more time to come and help him out, makes all the difference. And these are the little things that you don't notice throughout the season that when you get into a close playoff series matter a ton.
That they might teams might not exploit it on a Tuesday night versus Charlotte.
But
in the playoffs, like I need any little bit of wiggle room I can get, I'm getting it.
Exactly. They're gonna go for that. I think in between the two guys, I think I lean again. It's definitely a preference of style type thing. Brunson does remind you of like a guy like Dragic too, which that's the scoring guy, lefty. Great with his pivots, lefty, great with his pivots, up fakes, all that, gets his shoulder into guys. When the three is going, his three's going. So some similarities there. I prefer the way that Tyrese can manage a game through the beginning through quarter one through quarter four. How he's able to impact the game in different ways. Cleveland series, they're down 19. Okay, I'm going to become a scorer. And now I'm going to start scoring the ball a little bit more. They need a basket at the end of the game. I can do that. Or I can find the guy who is going off right now. Siakam's having a good game. Okay, it's going to be his game. Numbers having a good game. That's okay. I can play off ball. So I like that a little bit more. Sometimes when it comes to New York, when I watch them play, it becomes the Brunson show just a little bit too much. Like I forget that Cat's on the team at times. And we haven't really even talked about it much on offense yet. But I forget that he's there sometimes. OG finds a way to impose as well. Mikal finds a way to impose as well on offenses at points and times. But I feel like that Cat. So is Cat a guy that you can see get going in this series and really impose? Because I think if New York is going to win this series, Cat has to be a big factor in that.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. I think he needs to because I think Indiana's just playing like really good basketball, and they're gonna impose their identity. I believe they're gonna be able to impose their identity a little bit more. And Towns is a guy who can help you slow it down. Like he's a really talented post up big. He didn't shoot the ball well against Boston from deep. He needs to be better there. And I feel like they're leaving a lot on the table in New York with Towns as a passer.
That's true.
I think they should be running a lot more plays through him. create for others. And I feel like, especially when you don't have like Josh Hart isn't the best shooter. He can get hot for a series. He shot the ball well last series, but I think you want to use those that elbow passing, passing from the low post, and in case he forces the doubles. I think Towns is a guy who needs to be able to take advantage of some of these mismatches, especially if they're gonna, try to use Siakam and Turner a lot together. Like, you need to get anytime you get them solo big, Obi Toppin in. I'm trying to get one of these guards on a switch. Yeah. I'm trying to put him in under the basket. I'm trying to get TJ McConnell dunk on him and stuff,
some
like
quick fouls.
Exactly. Yeah, he needs to be way more aggressive and like defensively. I think he needs to be like as sharp as he's ever been, because Carlisle and Halliburton, man, they're phenomenal together.
They're gonna make his feet move, and if his feet aren't moving, it's gonna be a struggle for him, like, for sure. I think you make a great point there about being a hub. We haven't seen too much of that when he's been with New York, is being like that offensive hub in the middle of the court, in the mid post area. We saw that a lot in Minnesota when he was over there. They used him as a hub there to kind of make plays out of that position. I think, this is a series. If you're gonna slow down the game, you're gonna slow down the tempo. You can get the ball. You can get the ball to Cat in that mid post, high post area, and he can create some things for whoever needs to be. For himself, he can be aggressive. He can get to the basket. He's able to find. He's a great passer. You can find the open man if the defense does end up collapsing on him. If he makes it so that they have to collapse on him, then he'll find the open man, and he's a willing passer on that end. So offensively, really good at finding cutters. So I think offensively on that end, he'll need to be more impactful. Hopefully they look for him more in that end of the court. And then defense, you just gotta survive. Find any way to survive, and it'll be good. I think looking at more X factors of, I guess, Indiana, I think Nembhard is going to have another huge series. We talked about him being more of a playoff riser in these last two playoff runs. I think he's going to have to have another big series with presumably being the guy that's going to take on the task of guarding Brunson for majority of the time. And even if it's not Brunson, I'm sure they're going to put him on McCall at times if he starts going off, or whoever. He just seems to be kind of like that guy for them. Hopefully, do you think that he can be the X factor for them, or do you see someone else being the X factor for the Pacers in this one?
I think Nembhard is a great choice. I think they're relying on him as a scorer, as a defensive playmaker, as a playmaker offensively as well. He needs to continue to keep it up, man. Like, they're fortunate to have this problem where they have two shooting guard size point guards who can run offense, and Nembhard can play on or off ball as well as Hallie. He's been great. I think the scoring. I think they're such a balanced scoring team that they're very much like, how can we win this game? Like, all right, Nembhard's gonna score 20 this game. All right, cool. Next game, all right, Siakam's got it going. Siakam's gonna get it going. They have the versatility offensively with their shooting, with their cutting, their transition game. I think Nembhard continuing to make great decisions with the basketball. He was really good against the Knicks last year as well. I think that's a great choice. I think Miles Turner needs to enforce his will, rebounding. I think that's a spot where the Knicks can take advantage. You have Hart rebounding. You have Mitchell Robinson is healthy. He's playing good basketball besides the free throw line.
Somehow he's playing good basketball. That guy's knees, I don't know.
Oh my god, man! But they have guys who can will attack the boards, and Indiana needs to do a good job. And I think Turner's the other guy who I'm really looking at. He might not need to average 10 rebounds, but he needs to keep Robinson and the Towns off the boards.
Yeah, he's gonna need to have a big series. I think that's a great pick for X Factor as well. Like, he's gonna need to control that paint. Because even a guy like OG will sneak in there and try to get some quick easy boards as well. He'll try to get a putback dunk on some guys. So they're
especially if he sees Suni Lee in the crowd.
It's over. It's over. They're gonna need to wall off that paint. I think if there's a place on the court that New York can really expose, I think it is that paint, because you're really looking at Miles Turner as being that guy. And if beyond Miles Turner, their size kind of gets a little shaky after that. So I think if if Mitchell Robinson, if OG can really apply pressure to those boards, that's an area where they can, get some extra possessions and sneak out games in that type of way. And that leads more to playing in their style, playing that solo style. If they're able to control the boards, control the tempo, those are all the things that they're going to need to do to win this series. And there's definitely a path for them to do it. Trying to think anything else on this series to really touch on. Anything else before we move on? I think.
Who do you think? I'm curious your opinion. The coaching advantage.
Coaching advantage. I think right now I'm going Carlisle. Thibodeau does take a little bit of time to make some adjustments. I think Carlisle's well prepped right now. I think he's really, I don't know, I feel like he's in a good groove right now to really just win these things. And he seems to get Indiana up for these important games, like whether it's the NBA Cup, no matter what it is, if it's an important game, Indiana plays well. Like not everyone might take that NBA Cup seriously, but Indiana's there and they're ready for it every year. And I got to give credit to, I think, Carlisle for that. Thibodeau, we know what he's going to do. He's going to be rugged. He's not going to play too many guys. I think to your point of the depth of Indiana, I think we're allowed to see that because Carlisle trusts these guys so much. They've made him trust them that much, and he's willing to use those guys. When I was looking at some of the box scores during the series as it was going on, I remember seeing like 5 or 6 guys hitting double figures on points, and it's just that bodes to the cohesiveness of that team and how much they trust each other. And the only way you're able to do that is you have a coach that trusts everybody as well. So I think if I give the advantage, I'm going to give the advantage to Carlisle. I think they're going to be methodical with the way that they try to attack New York's defense. I think they're going to be able to do that. I think Carlisle's going to impose his will that way. I'm not too sure. I feel like with New York and with Thibodeau, they're going to play their way. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, I don't know if they're going to have the adjustments to back it up. One, because they don't have the versatility off of the bench to do so. They don't have the depth to do so. And 2, that's just not the way that Thibodeau generally plays
historically. Yeah, like I look at the Carlisle and Tibbs, and obviously both great coaches. I think Carlisle just has a little bit more answers and at his disposal, like you said, like with the roster and their versatility. But defensively, like I think Tibbs, if he can muck this up, like they're gonna play. It's gonna play in his favor. I also think a sneaky factor, just the rest. Indiana has 3 more days rest. They've played both series, wrapped them up in 5. I think potentially if they can settle in on a group, a 7-8 man rotation and shorten the rotation if they feel they need to. That's an answer that I don't think New York can get to. Like New York has their 7 guys, and maybe they stop playing Mitchell Robinson or Deuce, but I don't think they can really afford that. And I think Indiana, like if they need to stop playing OB, we're all right. We're healthy. We're ready to go. We're fresh, and I think that's something that New York might struggle with. But I'm really curious about it. This is such a interesting clashing of styles.
Yeah, I think too. There's like New York. What was I gonna say there? Yeah, more disposable things that Indiana can do for sure. And with that is the I had something there with their depth, but it's okay. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I think when I really look at this series, the defensive battle is going to be interesting. Indiana's better now than they were last year there, but New York is still going to be the driving force of the defense there. The paint's going to be a big issue for Indiana if they're not diligent in their defensive schemes. How do you like this series going? Who do you have winning?
I'm gonna say this is because I think this is gonna be a weird series. I think Indiana in 7.
Indiana in 7. I think I'm gonna go Indiana in. But you've kind of talked me. I think before we had this conversation, I would have won Indiana in like 5. Like I was not giving much respect to the New York, but I think now breaking it down, hearing some of what New York can do, I think I push that more to like Indiana in 6 and potentially even like more of a 7. But I think I'm going Indiana in 6. I do really worry about New York's defense when Tyrese starts to really get to manipulate that end of the court, and if they're able to find enough answers on that end of the court. But I think in general, I think the front court is something I didn't really process going into this. But now looking at it, I think that's an area where New York can really kind of win that battle. And if they're able to win that battle, I think the series goes deep. So I think I'm going to go Indiana in 6, but I would not be shocked now if this went further, and even if New York snuck it out. That's what it was. The other factor there is you got the two former Raptors going against each other. You got OG on one team, and you got Pascal going on the other team, and I think whoever has the better series might be the team that wins this series. I think OG matters a lot to that team. When he's cooking, they're looking good. They're looking good when OG has his offense going, and when Siakam's going, they're looking good as well. So I think it's going to be another little X factor there. Which Toronto guy can be the better of the two for this series?
For sure, and I think OG is also has it went to Indiana, so has the roots there as well. But I think OG has to like really play within himself, because there's sometimes where OG is fun and is one of the more exciting players to watch, and then there's others like, why did they pay this guy? What was that shot? Like, who does he think he is? And that's the balance. He's got to teeter over. Siakam is a lot more like comfortable in who he is and knows who he is. I think OG is still like still discovering who he is.
Somehow. Well, all those injuries, man, throughout his whole career, he hasn't had that time to really play. And I think I talked about it last pod with Dave, is that OG went to this Knicks team to kind of find himself as an offensive player. Like, he didn't get that opportunity in Toronto, and that's probably one of the reasons why he left. Same thing with Pascal. He left Toronto because there's a clash with Scotty Barnes there, right? They're trying to figure out who's the 1A, who's the 1B, and they just want to make a Scotty's team, so they let him go. So I think on the OG perspective, he is still very much figuring out what he is on the offensive end and what he's capable of doing and what he should be doing, and what can help his team win on the offensive end. On the defensive end, we know who he is. We know he's one of the best players, one of the best defenders in the NBA. Actually, I'll be interested to see when he gets to switch on to Tyrese, how he affects that, because he was able to do some things in earlier series against guards that were troubling for them. So if he's able to do the same thing to Tyrese, that's another factor going in New York's favor if they can all survive this series, because Thibodeau's not playing too many guys. So if they can all stay healthy, this could be a really fascinating series.
I believe so, man. I'm excited. This is, I think, one thing that has and that should have NBA fans excited is that there's no big market here. I mean, New York, obviously, but like there's no like the Knicks have been a laughing stock this century. There's no previous contender. None of these, Minnesota has never been to the finals. OKC's never won. Indiana, I think you have to go to their ABA days to. Knicks. I joke from being from Miami. I joke and say the Knicks are just the Dolphins. They won their heyday was in the 70s, and they've been a laughing stock ever since, pretty much. And one of these four teams is going to win a championship.
Yeah, which is very exciting to watch. I think Knicks last time they're in the finals with Ewing.
Yeah, 99. That was the lockout year.
Yeah, it took a lockout, of course. I'm very excited for these conference finals. New blood everywhere, teams that we don't generally get to see in these situations. So I think it's going to be a really fun one, just to see who emerges from the pack out of all these teams. I think moving on, we got a little bit of time left, so I want to get your thoughts. You are a Miami Heat beat, so I got to get your thoughts on how you feel this Miami offseason is going to look like, or what you hope they would do in this offseason versus what they may do, because we know they never do what we want them to.
Yeah, that's two very different questions for me. I think ultimately I'm very pessimistic with them and their philosophy on asset management, and I think the focus is going to be Kevin Durant. I think they don't have they keep thinking that it's going to be cheap, but I think a lot of teams are going to be in it for Kevin Durant as the 2019 Kawhi version of like the assassin, like the one final piece. I think a lot of teams are going to be looking for answers, especially since a lot of teams that have been in contention are fell short this year with these four new teams as the final four. So I think they're going to fall. I think they can't focus too much on that. I think they need to like retool and just kind of take a year to like reassess some things, be sellers, move some contracts, move some bodies to get some picks, young players, give some guys some time, find out more about the guys you do have and that you do want to build around, or you do need contract extensions, like Tyler Hero, like Nikola Jovic, Kel'el Ware, Bam Adebayo. You need those guys to see what they are.
I thought that was really a shame when they did trade Jimmy. First of all, that sucked. But like outside of that just sucking was Jovic got injured, I think like a week or two right after. And I think that this was like a big year, a big half a year for him of development, of just seeing what he is and what he could provide next to a Bam and a Ware. We didn't really get to see that. And if they need to make decisions as if going for a Kevin Durant, as it looks like they're gonna, I'm fully with you. I think they're gonna go for that. I think as earlier on, before the playoffs started, I would have said, yeah, the price is probably going to be a little bit lower. But as these teams start to drop out, even when I look at like a Minnesota, a Denver, a Cleveland has a second apron issues, but they can get under. There's ways for them to get under. I think teams like these are going to have to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, if we just get a Kevin Durant, like how much, So I think all these type of teams are going to be in that running, and it might become a pricier guy than you were really expecting it to be going into the offseason. So I think that might be a little bit of fool's gold there, seeing how these playoffs have played out. But yeah, you can continue. But yeah, Jovic, it really did suck. It really did stink that we didn't really get to see who he was going to be, because he's a versatile player on offense. His defense got better throughout the year, but we don't know what that looks like with Bam and Ware. Really, they barely got any minutes together.
Yeah, I'm a huge Nico fan. Like that's been my guy for a while. But like to that short stretch where Jimmy was like off the team, I always refer to it as the Orlando game, the January 27 game. That was the game. That was no, it was I'm sorry, it was January 23rd. It was he played. I think it went. I'm trying to remember if Jimmy played this game. No, he didn't. He was off the team at this point. But they from that stretch, Nico averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists,
I remember this stretch.
2 turnovers, and shot 64 from 2, 38% from 3 on 5.6 attempts from the field. And that's in 30 minutes a game. Like, he's productive, and
that was off the bench, right? He wasn't. Yeah. That's when they put him on the bench. Yeah,
right. He goes, and if you want a larger stretch, he had very similar numbers from December 12. Once they put him back in the rotation, and he got like after he was the scapegoat goat, he was still averaging 12, 4, 3.5.
Couldn't blame Rozier yet.
1.6. Yeah, they couldn't blame Rozier, exactly. But he was shooting 55% from 2, which I think is his biggest swing skill. He needs to be a mismatch hunter and be able to. They can't put smalls on him. And I was encouraged, but like we're focusing on draft beat now. And Nico, as of today, is still 21 years old. He'll be 22 next month and in a couple weeks and before the draft. And he's going to be younger than like Nick Clifford, who's going to be a first round pick this year. And average similar numbers that Nick did in college while he's doing it in the NBA off the bench. I'm just super excited about that guy. I think he has a lot of potential that makes boneheaded mistakes sometimes, but he's again 21.
He's young. He's 21. You forget the age because he's been drafted. So he was 19. He was just 18, turning 19 when he first came into the NBA.
Exactly.
So you forget how long it can take for some of these guys.
He started playing basketball at 13 too. Like
he's 6 years in.
Wow. A lot of these guys have been playing since they're 5, and he had like a 10-year delay on that almost. And he's really good. Like I think he's really solid. I think those are the kind of guys that like you need to take a chance on and like to really build around, see what you got, like give him the ball. Like I don't understand why he doesn't handle the ball more. Why did we have to see so much of Terry this year? Yeah, but it's just stuff like that. Like I think they have to take chances. I think they keep trying to do this one person fixes all of our issues move, and I don't think there's a guy that exists that fixes all their issues.
No, that guy is Giannis, and that guy is not coming to Miami.
I don't even think Giannis fixes it. Like I think Giannis would help. I think he makes them a contender, especially in a weaker East. But I think there's no like hand in glove fit that fixes everything. I think this team is a lot weaker than they actually think. And I'm worried they're going to go all in for it and miss and then not have a backup plan.
That's the thing with them, right? It's like every time they do go all in for one of these players, they went all in for Dame. They went all in for KD a few years ago. They don't have a backup plan. Like that's their plan, and then that's it. And it's like you gotta have at this stage in the NBA with the way that all the teams now like to trade. It's not just you and a couple other teams that like to trade. It's the entire NBA likes to make moves now. So when these things happen, other teams are gonna get players that you want. It happens. That's okay. That's not a problem. It's not being able to have a backup plan to that is where they fall into issues. Like last year, would they get Burks? Was their main acquisition?
Yeah.
Like that's it. No, you can't. That can't be the case. Like this year, okay, you're gonna go for KD. I understand you're the Heat, so you're gonna do this. You wanted KD for the entire of his career, basically. So you're gonna try and get him. Don't overpay. If it's too much, it's too much. That's okay. But I think I'm with you there that they can focus on other things. They could focus on building a team around Bam. They're going to try and focus around building it around Bam and Hero from the sounds of it. I'm optimistic that they're not going to do the extension this year. They seem to be a team that likes to wait until the last moment to give that extension, whether that's good or bad. As we see with Jimmy, terrible decision, but it's way too late to make that decision. Jimmy's a guy that needed that confirmation early on for him to be happy and for him to play the way that you want him to play.
It was also that they knew they weren't going to extend him.
They knew
they knew, like, if Jimmy could have played 82 games and averaged 25 a game, and they knew they were tired of him already. They like he had worn his welcome, like Jimmy does all the every stop he's ever been on.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing, they should have pivoted, and like you said, they didn't pivot for when they couldn't get KD. They didn't pivot when they couldn't get Dame, and they get left like this. Like it's like the Wile E. Coyote, the acne explosion. But you were talking about I heard your last pod where you guys were talking about the draft philosophy, where like teams can't go all in on tanking because like you could do that, you can waste a year and then you don't get a top pick, and what was that for? And I just think I think like you can't put your eggs in one basket in any portion of team building.
Exactly. Either
like
way.
You can't be all free agents, all trades, all drafting, because you need luck for every form of it. You need the lottery balls to fall in your favor. You need teams to pass on guys that will help you. Like as a Heat fan, if Toronto or any of the teams before them take Dwayne Wade instead of Darko or Melo, we're talking about the Miami Heat like they're the Indiana Pacers. They're no respectable organization, but no championships, all likelihood. In free agency, you need both parties to play. If you want to sign KD doesn't want to come to you, what can you do? You can't force him to come here. In a trade, you need to have what the other team wants. There's no singular way to build the team. And like I feel like Miami has for too long ignored the draft and ignored the trade, the stuff that this modern era requires to build in trades. And I think they kept hoping like it'll work itself out. Like we'll figure that out one day. And I think they need to evolve in that manner. And like I said this on Heapy when we talked about the Pat press conference, that he said a lot that makes it seem like he hasn't learned his lesson.
No, it feels like he wants to continue doing the same thing.
Exactly. He's like, we're closer. He's talking about the blown leads and all this stuff. And I'm just like, all right, I heard you, but I'm going to watch what you do instead of, and then I'll judge you instead. Cause you can't say, I fucking hate Tyler Hero. I'm going to trade him and expect to get a good offer. So like, I'm hesitant because I'm going to give him some of the benefit of the doubt, and wait and see, and then I'll judge. But I'm very pessimistic on their future.
The worry for me is that you finally got yourself in a decent asset situation where you got picks that you can use. That's taken forever. It took the entirety of the Jimmy build to really get the picks that you needed. You're now in a position where you're able to have some picks. You can make some moves. You have young guys that other teams I think would be interested in when you have like Hami, Jovic, Ware. These are all guys that other teams would like. You have the salary filler now. You have expiring contracts. So you have the package that teams would like trade wise. But yeah, my worry is that they see all of that and they're like, wow, we have this cachet, we got to use it. And I don't think they have to use it. I think they just got to do one or two like little moves that'll help out Bam, that'll help out Tyler if they're planning on keeping him for at least this year, so you can fully see what he has, because this is his last year on like a $30 million contract, I think, for Tyler Hero, which is good for him. But his next contract is going to look like, I think you're looking at upwards of like 40 or more. whether or not that's warranted or not, but I think that's where he should be looking to get. It does not need to come from the Heat, but you need to see what he is with a solid team around him. So I want to see how that plays out. I want to see what happens with KD. I wouldn't mind KD coming here, depending on what the build is and depending on what they're able to give up. Yeah, it's KD. Like he's
at the very least, it's fun.
Yeah, at the very least, it'll be more fun than whatever that was last year.
Yeah, 100%.
At the very least. So I'm okay with that, but I just hope they don't overpay for him and then put themselves in shackles again, like they were when they got Jimmy, because they weren't able to make that next move. When Jimmy came, the idea was Jimmy was the first piece, and then you're going to add another star. That's what Jimmy thought. I remember those early press conferences. He's like, Miami's great at getting their stars. So that's what Jimmy thought. That's what majority of the fans thought, and it never seemed to work out that way. So I hope they don't follow that same cycle. I'm scared that they might, but I'm optimistic that at the minimum, I don't think they're giving Tyler his extension this year. so if they don't do that, I think I'll be okay.
I agree. I think they need to build with. I think they need to evolve a little bit, just in some of their older methods. For example, we talked about this as well. It's just Spo was kind of done with Highsmith. Why was he still on the team? Why isn't he fetching a couple second rounds from a contender? Stuff like that. Because the way they've looked at second round picks is like, this helps us get off a contract to dump the tax. That's what they use their second round picks. Like they used it to dump Deadman. They used it to dump KZ Okpala. They used it to dump a lot of other guys. Myers Leonard, I think, was one of them.
Yep, they gave Yep.
Yeah, they that's how they use picks, instead of like this pick that they got back from the Jimmy Butler trade was the first round pick they acquired since 2008.
Wow. Wow. You know what? I'm not even certain that they're going to keep this pick.
Exactly. That's the joke.
They might not even keep it.
And they would have had the first overall pick if they had been in the lottery. So
they would just lose. They would just lose. But they can never just lose when we need them to. They will lose in other ways, for sure.
They lose in other ways, absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else before we head out?
No, man. I just appreciate you having me on. It was great to talk about the other teams around the league. I think you do a great job covering the league and in general, the Heat as well. And please make sure to follow Brandon. If you're listening to this and you're not following him, what are you doing?
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on. It's a blessing to have you on here. If anyone's not familiar with Franky's work, you should get familiar with it. It's not only basketball, it's not only Heat stuff. He's doing the movies, he's doing the draft, he's doing all that fun stuff. So make sure you check out Franky.
And I just joined Twitter again.
You're back.
I'm back on Twitter. I'm still on Blue Sky. My handle is IB_FrankyG. With a Y on both. So you can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky. I need Twitter followers badly, man. I had like 2,000 followers and I've got 50 right now. I'm catching up.
Definitely a follow that you guys all should have is Franky. If you want to dive into some good hoops and some good takes, like this is one of the top guys there. So please follow Franky. You can follow us. So you can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter, on Instagram, on all that fun stuff. Me at BJY93_. Franky at IB_FrankyG on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and all that fun stuff. You can like and subscribe on YouTube. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Peace.